Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello everyone. This is Senka with Foreclosure for Survivors Blog Talk Radio. This is a program about hope and justice. You are not alone. And I'm so happy that I was able to play our song during the wait time for all of you, because I already can see that many of you did call in to listen via phone. And I have to thank you, Dr. Jazz Norman, who did send me recording so I can use it when she's not around. But she's here with us today, and she will play the song again live for us. I just want to remind you, if you are listening our program via the link, then you're welcome to join our chat room. And you have to scroll down, and at the bottom of the screen, you will see the chat room login option. However, you can also listen this program via phone by dialing our number 646-716-5461, and this is the same number that you will use to call in with the questions. Right now, I would like to welcome our dear Dr. Jazz Norman, and she's here with us to play our song, We Are Not Alone, live. Hello, and Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hello, Senka, my dear friend. It's great to hear you again, and hello to all the listeners out there. I know it's going to be another great show today. I'm so happy to be back live again for you.
Thank you, me too. I was playing yesterday a couple of times, and thank you for sending me this, and I was so proud of myself to be able to upload it. For many people, that's nothing, but for me, it's everything. So I was using that yesterday a couple of times during the program. But I'm happy that you're here and we can hear it live now.
Excellent. So here I am playing your theme song, We Are Not Alone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us and for playing this live. It's different than when we hear recording. And I'm so grateful for your time and for everything that you are doing to promote our program. And I hope that I won't have program next week. I'm taking a couple of days of vacation, but I will be back on July 13 and 14. So if you are around, you are welcome to come back again.
Well, that's great. You do deserve a vacation, and I will be free both of those dates, so that's wonderful. And it's a mutual appreciation society here. I'm very grateful for all the work that you're doing. It's so wonderful that you're doing this, Senka. I love your work. And everyone that's listening, you have no idea how many people you touch and how important this is. And so I'm just so delighted to be able to participate.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for saying that. And without all these people who are listening and who are actually coming to the program to share their stories, we wouldn't have this program. So it's both ways. They inspire me too so much. And yes, we are not alone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Before I introduce our first guest today, I would like to read another excerpt from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail. It's going to be a short one. Dr. King said, "So the question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be. Will we be extremists for hate or for love? Will we be extremists for the preservation of injustice or for the extension of justice?" And with these words, I would like to welcome Attorney Danielle Joyner Kelley from Florida. Hello and welcome to the program.
Hi, Senka. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So many people who are on my Facebook page, and they are familiar with your name, but for everybody else who is listening and who still don't recognize your name, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? And I just want to tell people, Attorney Kelley, she's coming to this program to share not only her viewpoint of this foreclosure fraud crisis as a lawyer, but maybe more importantly, as a foreclosure fraud victim of her own. She's facing foreclosure, so that's probably how she became more and more involved and interested in the whole issue. So if you don't mind, you can tell us first, how did you become aware of this issue that we are all facing today?
Well, initially, my civil practice included class actions and consumer claims, and I did real estate law. Unfortunately, I, too, was a victim of the subprime market. My husband and I had a horrible predatory loan, and we ended up short-selling the house. When we did, of course, our credit was affected, and my father decided that he would sign a note for us for a new home on a non-predatory loan, so we thought it would be a fixed-rate note, and their payment was set and everything was fine. After closing, we discovered within about 3 months, the loan was with Countrywide, allegedly. After about 3 months, the payments went up $300. And then after a certain other number of months, it went up another $300. And then eventually another $300 until we were $900 over what we had ever contracted to pay. We inquired about what was going on with the escrow account, because certainly taxes and insurance aren't going up $12,000 in 1 year. And I'm not in a flood zone. You know, there's nothing that could explain it. When we contacted Bank of America, we were given two numbers, one to Urban Lending Solutions and one to Bank of America. And then we're told we had to submit our HAMP documentation through Urban Lending Solutions, who initially told us we didn't qualify because we were current on our mortgage payments. And that was problematic for me, given that it was my father's credit, and he had a very high credit rating. He does not miss payments. That they instructed us to make a partial payment, that we would get a modification, and the arrears would be tacked onto the back of the loan. We did that, and then Bank of America wouldn't apply it to the loan. I followed up the phone call with Urban Lending Solutions with a letter, I talked to them directly. They told me the same thing. I called Bank of America, and Bank of America said, no, in order to qualify for a modification, we're not going to take your payments at all. You have to basically go into default. The reasoning being that if you are asking them for help, you have to show you need their help by not being current on your mortgage payments, which now we know has systematically caused the default of thousands of homeowners, and it defeats the bank's argument that the homeowner as a deadbeat is a myth. So that is our personal experience that we are still battling, and to this day they cannot explain what happened.
And can you just tell us what stage you are at with your case?
Florida is a judicial foreclosure state, so we, as of right now, have filed an answer and affirmative defenses. We have an order to go back to mediation a third time. However, after 5 years of submitting hundreds and hundreds of documents, and now with the Bank of America affidavits coming out of the Massachusetts case, not overly hopeful that anything will be done.
So are you saying that Bank of America is still your servicer after all these years? They didn't sell your mortgage?
They did not. Freddie Mac is actually, according to them, the investor. They still have the loan. And so we're left to try to negotiate a modification with, and most people have seen the employee affidavits by now that have come out of that case, with a bank who has, by their own employee accounts, done everything they could to thwart the HAMP process and collect fees on files that they intended on putting into foreclosure anyway.
Okay, thank you. I just want to tell our audience and to you, it's amazing interest for your interview today. I already have over 20 people on hold. They are calling all over the country, and I just want to say that Attorney Kelley will be back with us on Saturday, July 13th, and I'm not sure, maybe she will give us an hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, depends. She has 4 kids, and I don't want to take her away from her family and from his cases. But I just see that interest is enormous, and I just want to let you know she will be back, and we will talk more, because today we have another guest, a family from Connecticut, and he said, Darrell said, Danielle, that he would like to hear more from you, and if it's not important, if you skip his story, and that's what this is all about. Can you imagine, like, you are facing foreclosure and you are fighting, and you still say, okay, I can wait. That's what, when people are not selfish and people want to hear from each other, and I think that's what makes us unique. We understand, and we're trying to just work together. But as I said, I would like to hear his story also. So what I was planning to do, maybe around 1:30, we can take first question, and then go back to our discussion, and then maybe take a couple more questions before the end of the interview today. But then again, you are welcome to call back and to listen on July 13th. Now I would like to go back to this Bank of America affidavit. For many of us who were facing this for a couple of years, nothing new has been said in these affidavits. The only new thing is that it's now official and public, and that these are ex-employees. So when Bank of America PR person and the bank said that these affidavits are not correct, they are not true, we all know that they are not telling the truth now, because all of us experience either all of these claims in the affidavit or some of them. So what's your take on these affidavits and how this will help? And also I would like to talk to you about why so many foreclosures, why so many empty houses after foreclosure eviction. What's in it for the bank that they would like to go to foreclosure, as these affidavits are stating now openly, instead of try to work out solution for you?
Okay, absolutely. The Bank of America affidavits do confirm what we've already known. I mean, as homeowners that have sent, I know I'm one of them, documents in time and time again, I know personally I can confirm some of the things that were said. I remember one employee writing that they would give you short notice. And then I remember getting phone calls. I still have them on my phone at 4 o'clock and told I had to have something in by 5 o'clock. Bank of America eventually required my father to quitclaim deed the property to us. I refused to do that without him quitclaiming to himself, myself and my husband, because I knew they would, turn around and claim due on sale, which I believe is what they were trying to do. And they required us to pay documentary stamps on that deed to keep the modification file open. So we were put through all the hoops and everything that they did with others. And, you get the decline letters that you didn't submit documentation, which I did time and again, to them directly through their attorneys. However, it needed to happen. So the affidavits are important because they're confirming what we already knew was taking place, and that is that Bank of America was given government money to consider homeowners for HAMP, but the problem is bigger than that, because Bank of America not only was to consider people for HAMP, but they were telling callers that they were dealing with, in a lot of instances, to stop payment in order to qualify for a modification. Now, we know from the employee affidavits that Bank of America preferred foreclosures and in-house modifications to HAMP modifications because they were more profitable from the bank. That's what the employees say. But the only requirement to be behind on payments is for their in-house modification, not for HAMP. HAMP didn't require that. So that shows at the outset Bank of America was considering people for in-house modifications over HAMP modifications, yet they were representing to the government that they were considering people for HAMP modifications in order to be able to collect the fees.
Okay. And also, there are many talks around the insurance. Somebody saying that they also would like to go through foreclosure in order to collect the insurance, and many people are not clear on that. Somebody is saying that the bank is able to collect insurance when you default, your loan defaults, and somebody is saying only after the final judgment, and some people are saying that they don't collect all the time. And I guess that I'm not sure if anyone has the final answer right now, or it's just hidden in all these securitization terms and depends from case-to-case basis.
Well, and it's a great point, and we know for a fact now from the employee affidavits that they prefer foreclosures. And I can't tell you on the attorney side of me how many times I've heard, Ms. Kelley, the bank doesn't want another house. Ms. Kelley, the bank doesn't want another foreclosure. One of those statements is true. One of those statements is not. The bank doesn't want the house. The bank does want the foreclosure, and let me explain. The bank wants the foreclosure regardless, there is an allegation, and it is my belief that they already have the insurance money, they already have the credit default swap money. The foreclosure itself is merely to hide the evidence and close down the argument so the investors will not find out that the bond is of no value. It's basically to clean up their mess once they get that foreclosure done. Do they get a payout after the judgment? There is some incentive for them to get these judgments because I have seen cases where they will not even consider a loan modification. They get the judgment, and then all of a sudden they're willing to work with the homeowner. So there's something going on, but like I said, I believe the main purpose is to mislead the investors. We know it was reported a few weeks ago that investors are still paying monthly fees on loans that are no longer in existence. I know Keno was one of the biggest cases that hit the Florida Supreme Court, and it was reported a few weeks ago. Investors are actually still paying monthly fees on that, and that was in the mainstream media that the loan is over with. So basically, to me, I believe that the foreclosure process is their attempt to clean up their evidence and hide the evidence from the investors of what's really going on.
And when I hear and when I see that some new lawsuit has been filed on behalf of the investors, I feel really saddened because because I feel like we as the people, as the homeowners, we are investors too, and we invested much more in these homes than a cash, than just a vehicle to make money. And nobody is talking about that like they talk about when the investors are cheated. And I'm talking about mainstream media and government. So I really feel like nobody cares too much attention. Nobody pays attention to people who are not only losing their homes, but I'm talking lately with so many people who had their small businesses connected to their homes. So they're losing small business, they're losing homes, and they, as we all know, I mean, that is, aside the illness or death in your family, that's really the biggest challenge you can face. It's not only, even if everything is okay with these foreclosures, if we have this due to economic downturn, I would expect government to step in and do something to help their people. And when we know that it's not the case, that majority of these foreclosures for the last couple of years are fraudulent, and you're still not doing anything, you are turning this country into a homeless land, and you're turning these kids into homeless kids. And how can you be mad if investors are cheated and not when this is actually happening with the people, as I say?
Exactly, and it's a fantastic point, and it's definitely true that the investor stories will make headlines over the homeowners, which is why it is so important for us to tell our stories. And there's two primary problems I'm seeing, and I'm in a judicial foreclosure state. When we look at standing or who has the right to sue, Florida, the majority of the cases have taken the idea that the bank has the note. The bank has the note. It has an in-blank endorsement. They're the ones entitled to foreclose. That goes against everything I was ever taught about standing. They're not proving their injury. So we know paper trails can be fraudulent. We know documents have been forged and filed. What I'm not concentrating on paper trails. I want to talk about money trails. If I wanted to sue for medical injury, I would have to bring my doctor bills into court and present them to the judge in order to recover. Why are the banks not required to prove that they purchased this loan, they own this loan, and they're entitled to foreclose on this loan? I can pick up a promissory note with an in-blank endorsement and go file for foreclosure. The standing, to me, you need to show me an injury, and they're not. Okay, it may be easier with investors to do, but it's not, at least for the homeowners, with the way the case law is reading. And it's troubling and it's problematic. The second problem is you have a government program that was passed and you give Bank of America $45 billion to run that Consider People for the HAMP program, okay, and then you're going to pay them monthly for every file that's still in review. That's like me giving $50 to my child outside of a candy store and telling them not to go inside and buy candy. I mean, it's an absolutely ridiculous argument, and it looks like it was set up to fail from the beginning.
Okay, thank you. You just nailed it. I mean, but it's. Can you tell me? With all of this that you know now, and how are you going about proving this in the court? And I just want to remind people that you are now a law partner with Neil Garfield, his new law office in Florida.
Yes, we have an office in Tallahassee, yes, and Broward County as well.
Okay, so I just want to ask you, when we all know this that you just stated, how do you go about that and how you prove that? So, because as we were talking yesterday with the lawyer from Michigan, it is really hard. You have to educate the judge. If judge is willing to be educated on this, as we all know, some judges don't want even to listen. They just want to hear, did you stop paying as a homeowner, and if the bank has the note. And for some judges, that's enough to rule in bank's favor. And I was also asking this lawyer yesterday because there are some out there, banks are saying that people are deadbeats and they want a free house. I mean, we don't want a free house. I mean, I want to pay my mortgage. I never wanted a free house, but why would bank get a free house? Can somebody explain that to me? That's the question. Like people never wanted a free house. If we wanted the free house, we would never sign mortgage documents. But you cannot keep stealing our homes from us, and you are getting these free homes which you don't own.
Exactly, and the deadbeat homeowner argument is a myth, especially when you have banks telling people to stop paying during a modification review. People say, oh, they've lived there so many years rent-free, and I would love them to know how many clients' checks I've held in my hands that were returned to them by the bank during that modification review. Okay, so most of the banks weren't accepting payments during a modification review. So to claim that the homeowner is even in default is preposterous. Okay, the banks systematically put them there on purpose, as the employee affidavits from Bank of America show, which will spill over to the other banks because we know other banks were doing it as well, that homeowners were stopped from making their payments. And if you're stopped from making your payments and the banks won't take your house payments during the years they're putting you through these fraudulent modification reviews, then how dare they come in court and say you're in default? They frustrated your mortgage contract. What the homeowner wants is to make the monthly payment they agreed to at closing with no fluctuations in escrow that aren't normal. I mean, there are normal fluctuations in escrow, and then there's ones that I've seen that are just insane, where the bank stopped paying insurance or did something to raise the homeowner's payment to where they couldn't afford it and would need help. So the homeowner wants to make the payment they contracted for, and they want to pay the right person per month for the mortgage. I mean, we're seeing cases where multiple banks are foreclosing on one homeowner. I mean, and that is the problem. Who are we trying to modify with? Who are we trying to negotiate with? We need to know who owns our loans, and it's very, very, very difficult to get a bank to tell you who truly is entitled. If you ask for proof of the money trail, proof of the wire transfer receipt or the canceled check, they will stonewall you. They do not want to produce that, and it ends up in a never-ending court battle with them to prove that they actually purchased or funded or had anything to do monetarily-wise with this loan.
Exactly. And can you tell me now, how long you have been in practice with foreclosure fraud only? And can you then compare, for example, when you go to the court to defend foreclosure or foreclosure eviction, what is the mood now or comparing to 2 years ago? And I know that Florida is extremely tough, and we will talk about that in our second part of the program with you about this new bill that just got passed. So I really know that it is tough fighting this all over the country, but Florida is specifically. So do you see any positive changes? Do you see that judges, at least some judges, are starting listening to you? Because I know I'm following Attorney Sopa, and he was on the program a couple months ago, and I do see that he has a lot of dismissals. I mean, I can say it means nothing. It means a lot, because only a few years ago we didn't have any dismissal, but we all know that with dismissal, bank can come back and file another foreclosure if it's dismissal without prejudice, which all of them are. But again, it is something new, I guess, and it's becoming more and more, at least with Mark Sopa's cases. So what can you say about your practice?
We have had some luck. I have some cases where I have countersued the bank back based on, and unfortunately, that is another problem, is the countersuit fees are based on what the bank filing fee was. So if you want to countersue, you're going to have to pay the same filing fee the bank did. It's based on the value of the property. Even though the countersuit isn't for the value of the property, the homeowner is alleging damages usually less than that. So I have had some success. Normally when I countersue a bank, the loan gets sold off. Go figure. But I have had some success in proving that a lot of these homeowners weren't in default, primarily because they were making payments when they're under some modification agreement or some repayment agreement when the loan gets sold off, and they continue to make the payments. The new subservicer, as I call them, doesn't know the payments are there. Then they'll discover the payments are there and refund the money and foreclose anyway. and I've had luck with that and judges saying that's not a default. The key is a default has to be proven by competent, substantial evidence. If you and we regularly attack the verification requirements on Florida complaints. They have to be verified by the plaintiff, which now Florida case law also holds includes the servicer, unfortunately. And, we've had some success on paragraph 22 notifications that the borrower wasn't given the proper notifications under the mortgage contract. But to me, the technicalities of all that, while they're big and they're huge because they're required under the contract, there's a bigger underlying issue, and that is to prove that these homeowners are not in default and dispel the myth that there is a deadbeat homeowner out there. So my practice has had success with that in a lot of cases where, we have enforced modification agreements, enforced settlements against these banks, and countersued them when we discovered that they were indeed inflating the escrow accounts.
Okay, thank you. And then before we take the first question, I just want to also, because it's coming well after what you just said about how banks are playing the field, and somebody told me a long time ago at the beginning of my research, and this is like a chess game. They have the most powerful lawyers, at least the most paid lawyers in the nation, and they know how to play the game. They will make one move and then they will wait for people who decide to challenge them. And like right now, what they're doing more and more, especially Bank of America, they keep selling and reselling these mortgages that are actually fraudulent. And as we saw, I saw yesterday an article that they are not obligated even if you started modification with them. I did see actually that they said if you have a permanent modification, you are kind of protected. But if you are in the modification process right now with the bank and they sell your mortgage to somebody else, that new servicer doesn't have to honor anything, any stage of modification you are right in. So, it's just all these different moves that are happening. It's really hard even for a lawyer to follow up, and there are so many homeowners without a lawyer.
Unfortunately, that's true, and I understand. The costs are a lot for all of us. I mean, when you want to take depositions and discovery is really where you do get information from the banks that you can use in your case. I mean, when you take depositions and when you do interrogatories and requests for production, of course they're going to object, and then you yank them back in court and make the judge. And no, you don't make the judge. You ask the judge to make the bank answer. Because they will object to anything, and that's really the way to do it, and it is very costly, unfortunately, but it also proves, a lot of malfeasance on the part of the bank. When you question the people that are verifying these complaints for the plaintiff, you will often see that they are given documents on a computer screen by the bank, and they review them, and then they sign off. Is that the plaintiff? It's utterly ridiculous. That's really where we can hit them and hit them hard, and it is a game. I'm getting calls daily that my loan has been transferred to this person or that person. The best thing I can tell you is if you are in a repayment agreement or even a partial modification agreement, there will be language usually that says that it binds any subsequent people, and that it also modifies the terms of the mortgage and the note. Use that language against them. That's what I've done. And no, they're going to argue, well, this doesn't mean this is a trial payment. This doesn't mean you're eligible for a permanent modification anyway. Make sure you've read the consent orders and the consent judgment. Know, which ones are still subject to what, even the sub-servicers, and use that back against them. We've had some success with that. So if you have an agreement that binds them, which I have seen in some modification agreements, then you have a contract, and then, and I don't even hesitate to bring the original servicer back in court and sue them for negligence for not telling the sub-servicer there was a loan modification in process. So we do whatever we can to show that, you know, something bad is going on, and it needs to be brought to the judge's attention.
Okay, and then maybe I should ask you this at the end of the program, but I'm afraid I will forget. At what point you think, or do you think that we will ever get to the tipping point of this? At what point, how many people have to go through the same thing that we are going through? How many people, I'm still in my home, but how many people have to experience this fight? How many people have to lose their homes before something happens? Because I was hoping for mortgage moratorium, for all foreclosures to start talking together, to start working on permanent solutions for these people, for our country. Do you see that happening at all?
It is my definite prayer that it will happen, and unfortunately, the way the system is set up right now and with the power of the banks and how heartbreaking these stories are, it has been a battle getting them reported, getting them told, you know, getting people to listen, because the bank propaganda has been far-reaching, that they're deadbeat homeowners who aren't making their payments. Even in the Hamp case in Massachusetts, you know, the banks were quick to say, well, they wouldn't have been in the modification review if they had made their payments. And you have to be thankful for cases like that, though, and you have to be thankful for employees of the banks that are willing to come forward and do what those employees did. Because even though we have known it and been screaming it for years, people are going to listen to them. And so, you know, it's gathering evidence, and the homeowners, you know, that us getting together and utilizing that to show, you know, that there is malfeasance going on and that we're victims of it. Unfortunately, at the same time, you have a lot of states, including Florida now, that says, you know, that will say, well, okay, fine, the bank messed up, but you still can't get your house back. And that's why it is so disgusting, because property is so special and entitled to specific performance, that with laws being rewritten to say, you know, I have one client that has a family home that's been in her family for generations. You know, I mean, what kind of value can you put a price on that? I don't want to hear anymore about settlements that are covering up, you know, bank fraud. Banks are excited about settlements. Don't think they're not. You know, and that are covering up their fraud, and then sending out $300 checks to someone who's lost a home. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is an absolute tragedy every time it happens, and it needs to be stopped before anyone else leaves their home. And unfortunately, I don't know when that time is going to come. Okay, but that's your hope that eventually something will happen on the positive note. Now, before I put that first audience member on the phone with his question, I just want to tell you that his name is Steve Johnson, and he's been on our program before, and I was talking to him this morning. This is on the lighter note, to go away for a few seconds from this foreclosure fraud stuff. My daughter, she's going to be 20 next month, so I don't know if you all know about One Direction, this boy band from England. They are the biggest thing on the planet now, especially for teenage girls. So she saw them in concert here a couple nights ago, and then she went with her friends to New York City, not to go to the concert, but to try to see the lead singer. So I told to Steve this morning, I don't mind doing all this foreclosure fraud stuff, trying to spare our kids from the similar situation in the future, and as long as my daughter can continue to run carelessly in the streets of New York, trying to catch this English boy. And I felt like, poor boy, because hundreds of girls are chasing him. And Steve said, poor boy, being chased by hundreds of gorgeous young women, he's not a poor boy. So with this being said, I would like, I mean, maybe it's only me, but I wouldn't enjoy being chased by hundreds of young men. So I don't know, maybe just me. Hello, Stephen. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Senka. On that backdrop, that backstory, I'm now expecting people to take me seriously.
We have to joke sometimes.
Yes, we do. We go crazy with that humor.
Humor is the way to keep from going insane, so it's perfectly normal.
Yes. Well, my question to you today is, I think a lot of people would agree with the sentiment that it really seems like the judges are absolutely and completely biased against homeowners under any circumstances at all. And I wonder if you have suggestions, what can a homeowner or their attorney do in a case where the judge is actually making the arguments for plaintiff bank, as if the court is actually advocating on behalf of plaintiff bank?
That is a question that is really hard, and I would love to say that I haven't seen it happen, but I can't. And what I have heard stories of attorneys asking judges to recuse themselves. I've heard, many stories. I haven't done that personally. But, homeowners really do need to make sure, and this is where, I do always advocate getting an attorney, and I realize a lot of people have to represent themselves. And I know some people that have represented themselves better than I probably ever could. But, because you need to make sure that the record is preserved. The judges, a lot of judges are aware that banks will appeal. Banks have lots of money. A lot of judges are aware that homeowners won't. So the record needs to be preserved. The cases that go up on appeal, and that's part of the problem was, we had a lot of appellate opinions come out at first, and especially in Florida, that were very devastating. That we have those side opinions that we also utilize. So make sure that you are gathering as much evidence as you can, and, presenting it to the judge repeatedly, even if they're making the argument for the bank, and preserving that record in case you need to appeal that case to show that, you weren't given a fair shot, because there was obviously bias towards the bank. I would love to tell you that doesn't happen, but I've seen it happen personally. So make sure that you're preserving the record as best you can, making the proper arguments. For example, I had one case where I had Aurora was the master servicer, Citi was the plaintiff, Wells Fargo showed up to testify, and NationStar was the holder. And I'm like, Your Honor, the plaintiff isn't even in the courtroom. And it didn't matter. So, it's one of those situations where you make that argument, you make the argument about the witness testifying, you challenge their competency, they're testifying to documents they've seen on screen that were handed to them a few hours before the trial. You make all the proper arguments under the rules of procedure and the evidence rules, which are available online, and you preserve the record.
Is that enough, Steve?
No, I'm still here. I'm just not wanting to. That's a great answer. That's just a great answer, and I don't have anything to add.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Thank you so much for your call. And right now I would like also bring to air Anita Reed. She's a woman from Minnesota. She was on our program earlier, and I just want to let you know, Danielle, that she has been evicted from her home in December. And she has a question for you. Hello, Anita. How are you?
I'm okay. But my question has to do with all the lies that the bank, Woodlands National Bank, told me during the redemption period time. I was promised twice by the vice president of the bank, Cindy Kuhn, said she would help me maintain ownership of my home, and also mentioned that the Obama administration might come up with a program to help me. Yet at the end of that 6-month redemption period, she told me to pack my things and leave. And that was just like the first of many lies. It's like, how do they get away with that? How do they get away with telling somebody that it's like my house was not underwater. It was worth at least twice as much as the loan. So it's like, how do the banks get away with stuff like that? How do they get away with lying to us? Because I believe that right from the beginning, hindsight says, she planned to get in that house anyway.
Yeah, I don't know how they've gotten away with what they have, and homeowners have tried for so long to bring it to light, and unfortunately, we listen to each other, but when it comes to the people that can actually do something about it, it's fallen on deaf ears. Right now, it's my belief they're not going to get away with it much longer. Employees are going to talk about what was really happening. That is why the banks have been so eager to settle, because they avoid public trials, they avoid testimony, they avoid, having their misdeeds brought to light. So settlements are great. They only have to pay out some millions here, and then they get to collect in billions in profit. I believe, it is my firm belief, that in cases that are filed, apparently the class action HAMP case went on just long enough that we saw these affidavits come out that really talked about the bank's malfeasance. Once you have employees, and I wish, because I am one of you all, I wish it was homeowners they were listening to, but once you have employees coming out and saying, this is what is going on, then as you see in the media, after that story broke, you saw in the media shareholders demanding investigations, investors were getting upset, congressional members were demanding investigations. It's going to take their own employees talking about what really, 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 really took place and the lies that were going on. And it's going to, that trickles down because, yes, it's proven that these were Bank of America employees that did this, but we all know other banks did it as well. And that opens the door for homeowners to say, I was told the same thing happened to me, but it wasn't Bank of America, it was, and enter the blank there. And then other lawsuits will likely follow. And eventually, little by little, the truth is going to come out of what took place. I'm a strong believer right now that people are going to keep calling for investigations. Whether they do any good, I don't know. But right now, as homeowners who are victims of what we know has taken place, we have to get louder and say, see, okay, these were filed in court. You see, their own employees are saying this happened to me. I want something done. And we just have to get louder. It's at that point now where their malfeasance has been brought to the attention of the national media. So right now, more than ever, the homeowners need to be speaking out.
And what ideas do you have for educating judges?
To educate judges right now, my best advice is to stay up to date on the most recent case law. Always, know what opinions are out and what opinions you can use. I had a pro se litigant who's been, I believe, on Senka's program before actually instruct me on a case that I didn't know about, and that I wasn't aware of, and because it was in a different state. And stay up to date on the most recent developments. When you see affidavits like that become public knowledge, I immediately printed them out and took them to a hearing that afternoon I had against Bank of America, and because it was on a modification issue, and I said they can't be trusted to modify. Eventually it will trickle into the other banks. We know that. We know that homeowners were suffering fraud at the hands of the other banks as well. So stay up to date on the the latest developments, the latest cases that are coming out. Attorneys are going to use the things we're finding, like what happened in Massachusetts, and know that now judges used to always say the bank doesn't want to foreclose. Well, now the BOA affidavits say, yeah, they do. And now the question is out there, why? Why do they want to foreclose? And now that that question is out there, an answer is going to have to be presented. And when that answer is presented, it paints a picture of banks not only misleading homeowners, but investors and taxpayers as well. So eventually the truth is going to come out. Just right now we have to utilize what we have and what's coming out daily.
Okay, thank you so much for your call.
All right, thank you.
No. Did you have one more question, Anita? Just go on. Don't worry.
I was going to ask if she. Mm-hmm. Yes, I just wanted to know if she thought that somehow when this all comes out, if we'll be able to get back our homes.
Unfortunately, and I know Senka hasn't asked me about the new Florida bill yet, unfortunately, the lawmakers are stacking the deck against that one. They are basically, Florida's new foreclosure bill limits homeowners to monetary damages only, which to me, and it will be constitutionally challenged, and I hope all bills and all laws that say a homeowner cannot get back their home is constitutionally challenged, because property is special. That is the American system of justice. Property is special. It is entitled to special protection. And to take that away and limit it to monetary damages only is egregious. It is absolutely egregious, and it's against everything our system stands for.
I mean, because as you know, being someone who's being foreclosed on, the stress and the depression is enormous.
It's huge. It's huge. I mean, the damages these homeowners have really suffered. I mean, and you've heard of cases of heart attacks in courtrooms. I've seen cases of my clients who were cancer-free. All of a sudden, the cancer comes back. And it's absolutely heart-wrenching, heartbreaking, and the damages increase. And I get mad enough to sue for intentional infliction of emotional distress because they caused it. You know, I mean, it's at that point where I am not afraid to tell the bank, because luckily in Florida, the economic loss rule, which the banks always cite, is now limited to product liability only. So the torts are open to sue in these cases, and that is what the banks have done. They've done more than a breach of contract, way more than a breach of contract. They are so in deep in personal injury levels that I couldn't even describe.
Well, I want to thank you for interviewing on Senka's show, and I want to tell Senka again, thanks for coming on with the truth.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I am so sorry that you lost your home, and just know that we are all going to fight the fight, no matter what it takes.
Well, I'm still fighting.
Thank you, Anita. I know you won't stop fighting. You will never know what will happen at the end, but we have to fight. We did nothing wrong. Okay, thank you so much for your call, Anita. Now, Danielle, before we take another, there are so many calls, and I just apologize again ahead of time. Next caller will be somebody from the area code 954. This caller has been on hold for 43 minutes. But before we go to this caller, I just want to ask you to talk a little bit about Florida House Bill 87, and you did testify before the House Committee. Can you tell us a little bit about the bill, about your testimony, and the bill actually became a law?
The bill is actually not unlike the path Florida has taken to make things look consumer-friendly, okay? The national mortgage settlement was a victory for homeowners, and, supposedly, and I'm sure everybody that received their $300 check thought so, but the bill is absolutely unconstitutional. It was presented to look consumer-friendly. The propaganda, the way it was displayed, was it limits deficiency judgments to 1 year. It does this, it does that. It'll make the banks have more strict pleading requirements, which we will now use back against them. But it also contains some portions that are very, very damning, one of which says that if you lose your home in foreclosure wrongfully, that the only answer is monetary damages. That's a problem. The legislature basically told the judiciary that they have no power to correct mistakes in foreclosure cases anymore. That's a problem. It also has what is now an order to show cause provision, which means that the bank can file a complaint, the judge can review it behind closed doors, determine if the homeowner has valid defenses, and if so, issue an order to show cause where this homeowner has a specific time period to come to court and prove their case. And what area of the law is a defendant ever required to prove their innocence? So, I mean, it is beyond the realm of what I can explain. It also allows banks to file motions to require homeowners to make payments during the litigation process. Imagine a personal injury case where the defendant has to pay the plaintiff just to have their day in court. That's how bad it is. And what is even worse about it is it's making a homeowner, make a payment to a bank that the homeowner may be disputing whether or not the bank even funded the loan or owns the loan, and it makes the homeowner make a payment in a certain amount to that bank that the homeowner is disputing. I'm disputing right now that I don't owe $900 more a month in escrow. That's not what I agreed to. If there was a failure in escrow, I wasn't notified of it. But to make me pay that payment, to me, is an admission that I owe it. And not only do I owe it to that particular bank. And I owe it in order to have my day in court when I'm the one being sued. It is absolutely against everything our judicial system stands for.
Okay. And can you tell me now about your testimony and how it was received? And, I mean, I know that you were trying to stop that from happening, but did you get any support for your testimony? Or?
I did. I had a lot of support for my testimony from some of the lobbyists who were against the bill. I was questioned by two representatives after my testimony. My testimony was primarily about the escrow shortage issue, how the banks were messing with escrow accounts, and also how they were telling homeowners to stop paying. One representative that questioned me used to work in banking. She said she had never heard of banks telling homeowners to stop payments, and that's part of the problem that I don't think people realize. The media hasn't heard of it either, okay? Nobody understands that this deadbeat homeowner argument, if you were told to stop making payments and they sent your payments back, then you need to get real loud because people don't know that the banks were doing that.
But let me tell you this, Danielle. Let me tell you this. Everyone now who is in the spotlight, these people, like all these representatives, even mainstream media, if they say now that they don't know about that, they don't want to know because we are so loud and so many people wrote letters to their reps and wrote letters to the mainstream media, and this was in the mainstream media before, but they're collectively trying to sweep it under the rug. So when they say they don't know, maybe some of them don't know, but then, excuse me, you're not doing your job. If you are my rep and you don't know what's happening in your area with all these foreclosures, then you are not worthy of your job. Go out of the office and we'll put somebody who cares.
Because now you have proof out there that they were running the HAMP modification process fraudulently. Okay, you have affidavits from employees. Now, take the first half of the equation. How did the homeowners get into the modification process? And investigate, were there escrow account shortages that shouldn't have been? Were they told to stop paying in order to get a loan modification? The representative said to me, it's not a requirement of HAMP that you stop paying. Absolutely it wasn't a requirement of HAMP. That's the problem. Why were the banks telling people that it was? It's more evidence that they were considering people for in-house loan modifications at a higher interest rate, which is what their own employees have wrote in those affidavits. It is complete evidence that they had a systematic scheme to put homeowners who were current on their mortgages, not deadbeats, into default, and then drag them through a loan modification process for years that they had no intention of modifying by a government who gave them no incentive to modify, other than giving them money, but knowing that Fannie and Freddie had the guarantee of the full value of the mortgage. I mean, what incentive, and they're giving them monthly fees to consider these files, what incentive did they give them to modify the loans in the first place?
Exactly. And I just want to tell you, like, people in the chat room, I never had, like, 28 people at one time in the chat room as I have now. And just people are cheering up, saying, she's nailing it, she's so good. We are so happy
I appreciate that.
And I just want to remind everybody who is joining us right now, this is attorney Danielle Joyner Kelley from Florida. She will be back on our program on Saturday, July 13. And she is our new foreclosure fraud star. And we are so happy, people. Even I talk over these 9 months since I'm running this program with so many pro se people who are trying to, for years, they're still in their homes, but they're trying to fight it on their own. We were talking about the lack of attorneys, lack of foreclosure fraud attorneys who actually understand, not only understand for your own understanding, but understand how to present it to the judge, how to actually go out and explain it all and defend the homeowner who is being foreclosed or evicted. And you are one of them. And I see that, like, I hope every day we will have more and more people as yourself, and that's how our voices will be heard when we have people who know what they are talking about and who are trying to prove, no, these homeowners are not deadbeats. How come that you have millions and millions of deadbeats in this country? Where we, came from.
Exactly.
That's
it's all our
you
fault.
Are doing wonderful,
it's all our fault, yeah.
Yes, you are doing wonderful job explaining it, and I will direct everyone to my Facebook page to see your YouTube video of how you try to explain as simple as possible, even though nothing is about mortgage securitization, but you try to explain it with pictures and everything for people to understand what happened, what's happening, and what could happen with this, because people have to realize that this is not only homeowners' issue, this is everybody's issue. That was
it is
the toughest thing for me even now to get people to listen, even if you don't own the home. Everything that's happening now in the world economy is based on this issue. And right now I would like to bring to the air our somebody from area code 954. Hello, you are on the program.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Can you introduce yourself? Hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, I'm Gloria. I'm Gloria
Hi.
in South Florida. I'm going to lose my house. It's supposed to go to auction July 17th. I had an attorney for about a couple months, and she more or less threw me under the bus, and I said, you know what, let me do it myself. So more or less, other than that, I've been in foreclosure for 2 years pro se. The attorneys for the opposing side didn't produce any documents of the interrogatories, subpoenas they didn't answer, killer QWRs, they didn't do anything. And then 3 days before the trial date, my last trial date, which where I got thrown under the bus, where the judge says, okay, well, you've been in this house for 2 years, we're throwing you out. Auction date is July 17th. They decided to show a supposedly alleged modification document, which they never produced when they served me the less pendants. I have robo-signing from Morris, Harwick, and Snyder through my robo-signer in Texas. She was also robo-signers with Marshall Watson. It's just a whole mess, and I'm like, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I could do to stop this auction. And I have until July 6th to respond. So I'm kind of like freaking out. Danielle, what do you suggest or recommend or whatever?
Did you ever, was a motion to compel ever filed regarding them not answering the interrogatories and requests for production and all that stuff?
Oh, yeah. My motion to compel kept continuing. It was ridiculous, absurd.
And what was the ruling?
I know. My last hearing before June 6th was April 24th before another judge, and and then I did a summary judgment of default against the plaintiff, and the judge ruled against that. But then she says, okay, well, I'll give you the motion to compel, but this is all over the phone because my attorney didn't show up. And then I said, well, he's not here, so he's in default. And she says, no, well, I'm going to call him. And I said, no, I object to you calling him because he's in default. He's not here. See, we were supposed to have a hearing that morning, and we got transferred over to the next court, and then the next court judge says, well, we're all going to stop now at 11 o'clock. You have to come back this afternoon. So I said to the opposing attorney, well, I don't know if I'm coming back. This is BS, whatever I said, or something, whatever. So, and then I called some friends of mine, and they said, Gloria, you better go back because if he shows up and you don't, they'll find you in default. So I showed up, and he didn't show up. So I went before the judge, and she denied my motion for summary judgment. and we still had the appeal compelled outstanding. But I slapped in a summary judgment of default, so she denied that. She granted me verbally, and then she called him on the phone, and so she denied my summary judgment, like I said. She gave me my motion to compel. At the same time, she ordered a trial. That doesn't make sense. Now, the trial was through another judge, and that was to really set the trial date for auction. That's what that was about.
Okay, so did they ever produce the document since the motion to compel was granted?
No. Oh, wait a minute. They finally did on June 6th, and this is April 24th. June 3rd, he sends me in the mail the interrogatories, which he denied practically everything, and he made some BS excuse, And then the attorney I did have, she amended my defenses, and then he argued those. And then 3 days later, I had my trial. And I went before Judge Bernstein, and that day she was all, okay, sale date, auction date, auction date, auction date. I think 95% of the cases were auction dates.
Unfortunately, yeah. I testified to this before the House and told them if they'd ever watched a foreclosure docket, it looks like a due process rights auction. In your objection, your response, and do you currently have an attorney? Because I'm not allowed to advise you if you do. But I would make the blanket suggestion to people that are in this situation and are filing objections to a sale to include, the fact that you didn't have discovery that you were asked for at trial. It's also called a motion to conform pleadings to the evidence that we'll file for issues that came up at trial that we didn't raise as defenses because we didn't know about them until trial, which the bank is famous for not producing things until trial. So if there are defenses that the bank raised at trial, for example, a pooling and servicing agreement, that if it was let in as a business record exception, was it given to you 90 days beforehand? Things like that, whether the witness was even competent to testify to the pooling and servicing agreement, things like that happen at trial, you can come back and do a motion to conform pleadings to the evidence. And
it was really sad. The trials are only maybe 15 minutes.
They are. It is an absolute. It's a joke.
It's a joke.
It is the worst thing I've ever watched. It is the worst thing I've ever watched.
And I thought, and I knew going in what was going to happen. Even if I tried to defend myself the best I could, being pro se, doesn't matter. They don't want to hear it. Now that the new law is now, thank God I went into court on June 6th. So I'm saved by the bell with that new law, with the HB 87, because he signed that into law June 7th. So, and I had my hearing on June 6th. So I'm saved by the bell on that.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And did they file the original note with the court?
What do you mean, the original note?
Did they produce the original?
The refi that I did in 2004, it was a copy. And then you know what they did? They showed the judge an alleged modification that I did in 2007, and they didn't even show me that the whole 2 years of the case.
Well,
and then they bring it up. Huh?
What I suggest for anybody in a situation where they have been through a trial and they're filing objections to a sale date is anything that's happened in the case from start to finish, any documents that weren't produced in discovery, any errors that were discovered at trial, any error you know about, put it in that objection. Make sure you're preserving the record, because that is the record that the homeowner will be able to take up on appeal.
So if I do an objection, is that like going through an appeal process?
You're objecting to the sale right now, and you may have a hearing. and then they may have an auction and sell it anyway. But at least you will have preserved the record if you have serious bank error to appeal to the district court.
Okay, thank you so much.
Would it be better for me to just appeal it opposed to doing an objection and then put that in my appeal?
Yes, because once the court rules on the objection and a final order for sale is issued, then you can appeal and say, but you need to do, if anything came up at trial error-wise that you found that they were testifying to, you need to do what's called a motion to conform pleadings to the evidence. If there's defenses that weren't raised that came up at trial, which often happens, like I said, because banks won't show their true colors until trial, then make sure you file a motion like that and say, I want the court to add these as my defenses because this was testified to at trial, and make sure that you also cover any errors that were in that took place in your case.
Oh, there were a lot of errors. I mean, they didn't even show standing.
Exactly. So make sure you cover those things just to preserve the record.
Thank you, Victoria, for your call. We have another listener. I hope this will be helpful, and please feel free to follow up with me. You can email me foreclosure12@gmail.com, and we will see if we can do anything for you, or if you want to come on the air and share your complete story. But just know that you're not alone. If we can help legally, at least we are here to listen and to be here for each other. But feel free to contact me again. Good luck.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Danielle, let me know what you want to do now. Our next guest, he is on hold already, and he has a question for you. So he maybe before he goes on with his story, I will give him opportunity to talk to you. However, we have somebody who has been on hold for 30 minutes. Do you want to say anything that we missed today that you think is so important to say in this part of your interview, or do you want to go to these next two questions, and then we can continue on July 13th, whatever you want to do?
Whatever's best for you, Senka, because I know you're running the program. I will just say that, a lot of judges want to be educated, and a lot of judges are educated. And I realize the judicial system has done us very wrong in a lot of courts, but have faith in the judicial system. Don't give up. Don't give up fighting. Don't give up filing. Don't give up preserving the record. Don't give up bringing fraud, the attention to the courts of what the banks have done. The courts are just now learning about the Bank of America affidavits as well, okay? So now they know that they wanted homeowners in foreclosures. So have faith in the judicial system. Judges are people too. So, eventually I am confident that we'll overcome.
Yes, and I really do believe, no matter what's happening now, I really still believe in our judicial system, because this is our country, and judges, as you said, are just people like us. And, okay, there are some people, it's me saying, not you, some judges who are corrupt, some judges who are ignorant like everywhere else. But when you have masses saying the same story, they have to listen, and they are stuck to listen, so don't lose hope. I just want to tell you, our listener in the chat room, Robert Townsend, he's from Nevada, he said, we need this podcast linked to a YouTube and get it viral. I have not heard a better analysis of this whole thing in one place yet. So this is a huge compliment to you, and I hope that somebody will be able to, because I'm not tech person at all. I don't have anybody who can help me with that. I kept saying I'm one woman running this, and it's becoming bigger than me, so I really need help. So if anybody can do podcast and link to YouTube, this interview, and we will, to get it viral, we are all for it.
Oh, well, thank you, and thank you, Robert, for the compliment. That's wonderful.
Sure. So right now I would like to put on the air a listener from area code 661. You are on the program. Hello. Hi. 661 area code. Can you hear me? Maybe there is something wrong with connection. So I will put our next guest who is here to share his story. Darrell, he is from Connecticut, and but he has a question for you, for Danielle. Hello, Darrell.
Hi, how are you, Senka? Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. You know, I've had the pleasure of listening to you a couple times before, and I could just sit here for hours listening to you. And I think it's a real big help to a lot of us out here that are doing pro se. And, you know, it was one thing I was listening, and I listened to all the callers, Senka, call into you and the things that you say, and I say, this must be driving the courts nuts of all these pro se litigants. It just must be driving them crazy.
That's the bank is counting on so many people just to vacate and roll over and walk away, and I applaud the pro se litigants. I am so just pleased to know there are people out there fighting, because the banks are counting on you to roll over and leave your home, and by refusing, you're not giving in to them. And that's step one in this whole process.
I agree. Senka, did you want me to... what would you like
sure.
me to do?
I mean, do you have any other question or for Danielle, or you are all set?
Well, if I start asking her questions, I'll be on here for 4 hours and I'll never tell my story because I can just continue to ask them. And it's fascinating. It really is fascinating to listen to, you know, a lawyer's side of it that understands these issues, because a lot of them don't. And I think it's really important that, and it's hard to get over because it is a club, let's face it. And for someone who's not legally trained like me or many of the others to go in there, and you got to eat a little humble pie. You can't go in, it's my opinion, going into a lawyer because some may really want to help. But if we go in there as pro se litigants, because at a certain point you're going to need an attorney. I really believe that. If you go in there and just start spouting everything and telling them, you know, that it's this and that, and demanding that they do that, it's just not going to work. So not only do the judges do we have to convince sometimes, it's local attorneys that are willing to maybe take on the case, but it's a slow process, and there's not many attorneys wanting to do it at this point.
Well, and there's, you know, especially in the foreclosure defense states, I've noticed, you know, and I know, I mean, I can't speak for non-judicial. I know in non-judicial, a lot of people go to bankruptcy attorneys to tie it up and try to get a loan modification. But in judicial foreclosure states, you're looking primarily for a foreclosure defense attorney, and it is a very new area, and things are changing daily, and the lawyers that are on top of it and paying attention, those are the ones you really want arguing for you, that really, really understand what is going on and what has to be, you know, pled and proven, and how to present a case.
Yeah, procedure, that's what I'm finding. I think procedure is the biggest thing, and even though we all want to fight, listen, they didn't go to law school for nothing, these attorneys, and, you know, it's a great asset, and even though I am myself doing it by myself, you know, I think everybody should talk to a qualified attorney in their area and get some advice. I mean, it's a really tough road going alone, and the odds are against you if you're going it alone. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I agree to do it because that's what we have to do. But an attorney is very important. And if you keep searching, listening to, like, Senka show and doing research, you will find an attorney that is, you know, up to date on these issues. You just got to look. You
absolutely will. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Danielle, before we let you go, as you can see, we can spend like 24 hours listening to you. But I wanted to ask you something that I should have asked at the beginning. How you do it all? Danielle has 4 kids and a husband and a legal practice and a foreclosure case of her own, and she's all over social media fighting for us. How you do it all?
Through the grace of God. A lot of prayer, a lot of praying for strength, and, you know, and just trying and knowing that the truth can only be hidden for so long, and misdeeds are always brought to light. And having faith in the very system that I'm frequently criticizing right now, but at the same time knowing that we wouldn't have these employee affidavits if it weren't for a courtroom in Massachusetts, if it weren't for attorneys that were willing to fight. So having faith is what gets me through. And, you know, my fight, I would, my fight is not just for myself, but for everybody that has sat in my office and told me their stories. It's heart-wrenching. It is absolutely awful. And to say I'm not personally involved or connected with each case would be a misstatement, because I've been there. When they tell me they've submitted documents 30 times, I know exactly what they're talking about.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I'm looking forward to the second part of your program, which will happen on Saturday, July 13th. Thank you, Danielle.
Thank you so much, Senka, for having me.
Sure.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, Darrell, my friend, now the mic is yours. Can you tell us your story from the beginning? Can you introduce yourself to our audience? You're listening to Foreclosure for Survivors, Blog Talk Radio program. Our next guest is from Connecticut, and he's been fighting together with his wife for, I think, 4 years now, pro se.
I started, there's some different angles on our case. And again, my name's Darrell Neilander. My wife, Jennifer, and I are from Connecticut. We have no, legal training or anything like that. We originally, and I think it started around in 2009 when I started learning some of the issues that were going on, and I sent out QWRs. I was just learning. And we were curious of some bills that were on there, and we were going to attempt to modify our loan. And we went through the same thing that many of the listeners were going out through, where they told you to be behind in your mortgage, which is just crazy. But that's what they told us, and they still do it to this day. Anyways, we started modification procedure, and we really weren't getting anywhere. But we felt that we were at the mercy of them. We had no knowledge, and I don't think at that time, 3 years ago, we had as much information as we do now. But long story short, to get to the point of where we came to file our federal lawsuit was we wanted to make sure it was important that we were signing with the rights. If we were going to have a modification, we wanted to first make sure that we were negotiating with the proper creditor and make sure that, and not just the servicer. So after a couple attempts signing modifications and the servicer promising that they were going to send the proof of who was the original creditor, and not getting that, we filed a federal lawsuit in the District of Connecticut. It's Neilander v. SLS, if anybody wants to look it up. That's Neilander v. SLS. SLS is Specialized Loan Services, and we're a servicing company in Colorado. They're basically, and I think that they are owned by Bank of America. I don't know how they are, but they're owned by Bank of America somehow. So what we did was, when we started getting, this what I would say, Senka, was probably in early, sometime, I'm going to be screwed up about the dates, but it was somewhere around 2011, and they started threatening us with foreclosure again. And so we said, we basically go back to law firm and said, listen, we deny that we're in default. We deny that these are the these are the original owners, and you're collecting illegally. There was various letters. Nothing happened, so we filed, and I think in October of 2011, we filed a lawsuit under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Now remember, I'm not an attorney, people, so I may have some of my facts wrong, but I did the best we could. We filed our first complaint in October of 2011. Now, with fair debt collection, the difference of the fair debt collection, now remember, there wasn't a foreclosure at this point. There was no foreclosure. What we were doing is, when you use the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, and I should add the Connecticut Unfair Trade Practices Act, we also do. But what we're trying to do, it's not about the debt as much as it is the collection of a debt. Meaning, there could be a debt, there could not be. It doesn't. That's not the question before the court. the question is, how did these third parties, who we were saying that are, and now we find that they are, we all know that these are third-party debt collectors, did they violate the law and the way that they collected the debt on us? Did you ask the question, Senka?
No, I didn't. I'm just listening to.
So we started that suit. We filed a complaint, and as we're going, our intent originally was always to try to modify the loan. Listen, we borrowed the money. Any of us out there know we all borrowed the money. And I owe somebody, and we want to pay them back. I'm not going to pay an imposter. And that's the bottom line. So we were going to make them prove that they're the owner. In other words, you're at a disadvantage in a foreclosure suit, but in here they're going to have to prove that they're the owner. And so the case goes on a little bit. The judge, we go back and forth, file some pleadings, they file a motion to dismiss. We answer all these things, and then the judge orders a settlement conference, believing that we do have some standing here and that this case could go. So we agree. Okay, we'll go into a settlement conference. If we can end this and make it, go back to our lives, then that's fine. So on the day before the settlement conference in the district court, we got served with a foreclosure. When I say we, my 14-year-old son got served with foreclosure papers. Now, obviously it was scary. All of you out there know that feeling. To me, it enraged me. I was enraged because it appeared right at that point that I'm not dealing with people that are dealing honestly or in good faith. What they tried to do is to try to scare us. And I'm a big boy. I knew the game. And I went there and showed up at the settlement conference, my wife and I, and he had the complaint, and I'm reading the complaint as we're talking. There was no way that I was going to give in now. What they were trying to do is intimidate us, like they'll intimidate all of you, to sign on the dotted line. And the defense counsel's face probably dropped when I said, that's fine. I'll settle this Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, but I'm not signing off that you guys are the owners. And I don't know if that makes sense to people, but in other words, what we're doing is we're going to call their bluff. If they want us to find a foreclosure, that's what we would do. So the case wasn't settled, obviously, and at the time, the judicial referee who oversees these kind of hearings said, listen, the defendants, the plaintiffs, which are Jen and I, are pro se. I believe that they need a pro bono attorney to be able to sift through all this stuff. And listen, if we can get to an agreement, then great. So the court orders an attorney. We bring all the information to an attorney. And after we bring all the stuff to the attorney, and the attorney decides, okay, let's amend the complaint. Now, the attorney obviously sees that there's some things in there. So we amend the complaint, and we're going to go forward. All during the time, the bank wants to negotiate, wants to give us a modification, which is great if it's a permanent mod. It does things, and it helps people see. A lot of people are against the mod, and I can understand why. But if the mods were done in a proper way, in a fair way, that could help the majority of people out there, then that's the way we should go. But what's happening is, and like Danielle says and many others says, they're not operating that way. They don't want to mod. They want to just delay. So let me get to where I am. Okay, so this is where it gets kind of interesting. We're in the negotiations all through the time, like you are in any lawsuit. Anybody is always in negotiations. If you could settle the case and it's good for both parties, then that's what you do. So at the whole time, we were, I would say, semi-negotiations, but we're moving forward with our case if they don't do it. What happens to me is our pro bono attorney gets appointed a judge by Governor Malloy. Okay? So that means she has to withdraw from the case. She withdraws from the case, But an attorney that we had on a separate matter says I will step in for the purposes of settlement conference, because the judge ordered another settlement conference. So we agreed to that. Now, I should say during this time, the bank has gave us several different modification things that we absolutely refused to sign. It just wasn't good for anybody. It didn't prove anything, and it would put us in a worse position. So let's get to, now we're in our federal case. We are unrepresented. We're unrepresented, and we're represented by an attorney who will not plead or do anything on behalf of our case, but we'll try to negotiate a settlement if one could be had. And the agreement was made through the judge, through these attorneys, if the settlement cannot be had at the last meeting we were having, that they were going to appoint pro bono counsel again, and we would continue our case. Does all this make sense so far, Senka?
Yes.
Okay. So we were going to continue our case.
You can just continue with your story, and then, because I hate to interrupt you with the questions until you are done with the story, because you have everything in one place, and it's been so long. So just tell us the whole story, and let's see if we will have any questions from the audience. If not, then we can chat a little bit about that. But you are doing great, and I just want to say, maybe to give you a little break, that I'm so amazed with all, I kept saying that with all people who are doing this pro se. I'm not telling you to do it pro se, since I would never be able to do that, even if I know 100% that I will be successful at the end, because it is really, really depressing, and it's really stressful to go through this even when you have a lawyer. So I'm really amazed that it's not only that you're doing pro se, but you were able to keep your marriage intact doing this, because so you are fighting this together. So you are a double heroes, you and your wife.
Well, thank you. I don't feel a hero. I just feel I'm fighting for my life, like everybody else out there. I'm just like everybody else. I should say, okay, so if I led all of you to the point that we're going to have another settlement conference, which was last month, but what I have to say, in between that time, I did not stop fighting. I would go to the Connecticut State Banking. I filed a complaint there. I filed a complaint with the the Consumer Financial Protection Board. I was ringing the bell from the church side as loud as I could. So even though the bank was saying we were negotiating, I was still pushing, because I knew that we weren't dealing with people that were operating in good faith. So during one of the investigations, I also say we're under subpoena by the Security Exchange Commission, who was also interested in the case, and to this day we're continuing sending documents to them. So here goes. Now I do have. So I obtained this bunch of evidence. I know that during litigation, so since I started in 2011, people, believe it or not, the bank has said our loan, during our lawsuit, has switched 11 times. 11 times someone's had their hand on this loan. This is during the lawsuit. So let's just say if you're all sitting out there and you want to negotiate some kind of end to the deal, how could you do it? There's 10 to 11 people all saying they have interest in the loans. So, we weren't really thinking that we were operating in good faith. So here comes, we're waiting for the meeting we have the judge with the meeting, we go to the meeting, no agreement can be had. It just wasn't working out. At that time, the attorney was supposed to ask the judge to reappoint pro bono counsel. He didn't do that. So he came into us, because we weren't allowed in the chambers with the attorneys, and we were left in the library. And he came out after the meeting and we said, no, we're not going to do an agreement. And he said, well, let me try to continue to do some negotiations. So we say, fine, that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. So what happens is probably 40 days pass, I would say, we still hear nothing. And what we get and anybody who's online with the federal docket, if there's any kind of ruling or anything like that, you automatically get a notice. Well, we get a notice saying our case has been settled. This is the federal case. Our case has been settled. And we immediately contact the attorney, and we say, what the hell's going on here? He said, well, we didn't agree. We haven't seen any terms. He says, well, don't worry because it wouldn't be final to another 30 days, so we still have time to settle. So we're thinking that the attorney knows what he's talking about. So we wait. So now comes another 28 days, 2 days before our case would have been dismissed permanently in the federal court. Not hearing from the attorney that represented us just for the settlement conference, and no agreements coming from the defendants to settle the case, we filed a motion to reopen. And that I would say was the 21st of this month. We filed a motion to reopen. That motion was granted. On the same day we filed our motion to reopen, which was the 21st, we fired the attorney and told him to contact defendants and tell them the case is on hold until we get a new attorney. So the attorney's fired on the 21st. What the attorney does is the attorney contacts the judge ex parte and with nobody's involvement against our wishes and tells her the case is settled. So the court overturns their order to open our case and now puts it back on. So obviously we're very upset. I mean, for an attorney, I've talked to many attorneys throughout the country. Most of them, I haven't heard one say in all of the years they've never heard an attorney do this. Now, what could be the reason that this attorney would do something like that? So we dig in a little deeper, and we find out that the attorney that was representing us in the settlement conference was the attorney for the original lender. He was the closing agent for the original lender. So I'm not saying what his reasons or his motives were. We're not going to determine that. We're just going to follow up, and either the Board of Disciplinary will check on it and find out what it is. But it was unbelievable to me that an attorney interjected in after he was removed from the case, to try to say that this case was settled. Now remember, no agreements. We've seen nothing. The only thing that we ever saw during this whole time or heard was that the servicer or the creditor would lower the rate and lower the payment, monthly payment. The only two terms that were revealed. So what we get now is we're in the middle of a case trying to reopen. What the defendants are trying to do now, meaning the servicer and the bankers, is they petitioned the court, made a motion in opposition to us to reopen the case. And incredibly, what they're trying to say is that we, the plaintiffs, agreed to a settlement and that the judge should honor that settlement and award us costs. It's just unbelievable. So we're at that process right now. We're in the middle of filing briefs and filing the motions, and we have a certain deadline. But it's just incredible that the court ruled to reopen the case, and some attorney came in and obviously told the judge something that was false. Thank God, Senka, what we did was we documented everything. We did everything by email. And we have proof that we never agreed to the case. I'll give you another example that this lawyer tried to have us do. During the settlement procedure, he'd say, I want you to send a payment to the defendants. And for a monthly payment, we hammer right off back an email and say, absolutely not. We won't send the defendants a payment. There's no agreement on the table. We have no terms. We'll send it to you as in trust in case there was one. So incredibly, what the defendants are trying to do now is say, we sent the payment. But it's clear, it's clear through our evidence, through our documents that we can have and that we'll submit to the court when they let us, is to show that we never agreed to anything. What's happening here is obviously just the bank is trying to do fake bank is trying to get a backdoor way of getting the case dismissed and have a federal court say that this is the new owner. Now remember, I told you about the 11 times it's been transferred, 10 or 11 times.
Yeah.
Discovery. Nothing has been challenged. What their basis of what a judge should rule on is to say, hey, we had some documents in a settlement conference. We want to skip all the discovery rules, all the rules of evidence, and we want you, Your Honor, to make a decision that this is the new owner. We're not going to have any of it. If the judge does, listen, judges can do anything. And hopefully the judge will see through what's going on here because of the evidence that we have. But, but we're going, if the judge does rule this way, we put enough on the papers to support an appeal. And that's where we're going to go. I'm not going to stop. And that's what happens with these things. See, for most of you out there listening, and I get it. I mean, I've been there. What they try to do is wear you down. We can cry, and that's fine. We cry to each other, and that's what we should do. But don't cry about it in the banks or your pleadings. You just continue to fight. Because what the banks want you to do is to cry and give up. Well, that's not how I work. My disposition works. If you push me, I'm going to push you back. Now, one thing my disadvantage is I'm not a lawyer. I don't have that. But I can't read basic law, and I know what's right and wrong, and, you just got to continue to fight. So basically, that's where we are now. It's the only case in Connecticut that we know of that's fighting these servicers and these state creditors under the FDCPA. Hey, if people out there start looking up FDCPA, it's a great way for you to fight these banks because it's an easy statute. It's easy to read. Go on, search FDCPA cases. There was a very important case in California. I think it's called the Narjano case, which the court actually said, in an appeal that these were third-party debt collectors, or that they would listen to that. So, I mean, you got to remember, you use I think Senka said it, and a bunch of everybody out there, we all take a little bit of what everybody's doing. And just take a little piece of everybody, join together, and we'll keep fighting. I will help anybody in telling them how I did mine. I'm not going to tell you how to do yours because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know how to do that. But I will help anybody. Yeah, I will help anybody showing them how I did mine. And this has teeth in it because if you can get by these few motions, then you can get these people into the court, into discovery, which they do not want. So I don't know if I hope I was kind of clear to anybody. I'm not a very good speaker, as you can see.
No, you did great. You did great as much as you can. You put it in a simple words, even though we all know that there is nothing simple about that. And that's why so many people are not even trying to challenge the bank, and that's why banks were running wild for the last couple of years, knowing that even if you do challenge, we know what's happening. But thanks to people like you who are, as you said, I'm not going to give up. I will push you back in order to prove myself. And I'm not saying that we will win in the court, that you will win as a prosecutor, but right now you are thinking about justice. And if you didn't believe in our judicial system, you would give up a long time ago. So you do believe that justice will be served, and that's all that we ask for. We are not asking for the free home. We are just asking for justice and for all our laws to be applied.
Right. I'm not asking for a free home. I'm just saying don't give them a free home. I owe the money, and we want to pay. I mean, that goes without saying. We borrowed the money. We want to pay. I don't deserve a free house. No one does. But I deserve to pay the right loan. And I definitely got to mention that, listen, because of you, Senka, and most importantly, I would have to say who made a total difference in my life on fighting this was John Wright at piggybankblog.com. He gave me the nerve to fight back. And if anybody has talked to John or went on his site, Piggy Bank Blog, he has a way about him that is just that empowers you. And
let me tell you about it. It is coincidence because you and I didn't talk about this before the program, but John Wright is exactly the same man who did inspire me. And when I first came to this fight back in 2010, because I was facing Bank of America, and the thing that when I type in Bank of America online, his blog came up, and I started following his blog and started to know him better, and that's he got me inspired. He got this fire going on that you have to fight back, that there is no way that you have to give up. So once again, I would like to thank you, John Wright, for doing it, not only for me and Darrell, but for many people.
Yeah, at Piggy Bank Blog, I'm saying he gave me the power to fight back. He gave me the power to fight back. Not only did he do that, when John did, if you go to his site and you look up, type in Neilander, then you could see he did an extensive article that was so in-depth that it was one of the best articles I've ever read out there. Well, one, because I'm biased, but it was so in-depth about the information of the crisis and what's going on. And in fact, by John's blogs, I was contacted by the government. The SEC is now involved in our case. Like I said, we've been under subpoena with them and supplying documents. You know, the big thing, too, now, just because I should get it in there real quick, is what the banks are trying to say now, that my loan has been in default since October of 2011. Okay? That's what the bank is claiming. What the bank supposedly says now is that the loan was sold July 12, 2012 to a trust. Now, this is where the SEC is involved. Now, if the loan was in default, it could never go into a trust if it gets a pooling and service agreement. So we don't think that the loan has ever been in a trust. It didn't make it to the trust. It's just another line that the banks are trying to use. But what's going to happen here, Senka, is the trustee of the trust for U.S. Bank, and I'm not using his name right now because he is under investigation. The trustee for U.S. Bank is saying that our loan is in a trust and that it was in the trust in 2012. Well, how could it be? That's impossible. So, I mean, there's a lot of things in the I mean, I can just keep talking about the different things I have on them, but the trustee is where to go. Because if the trustee did something illegal, and like our loan right now, it's supposedly in a trust that's cheating on J.P. Morgan. Well, they're bilking investors. If it's true what they said, and our loan is in default, then they're tricking investors once again. It hasn't stopped. But if you have any questions, I don't know if you have much time left.
We have a couple more minutes left. I would like to ask you because you didn't mention on your own, and we have to make it not more personal. I don't want you to give me names of your kids, but people have to know that what are you facing every day. It's not only that you and your wife are doing this pro se. You have to support your family for everyday life. And then you have, can you tell us how many kids you have? And how do you manage your time as a father, your time as a guy who has to work full time to provide for his family, and then to be in a good mood and supportive for their kids?
Well, I have 3 kids. And a wife that I've been with 20 years. I've been married 15 years. My wife, Jennifer, I've been 20 years. And, without her support, I wouldn't be able to do this. But the reason that I'm fighting this is because of my 3 kids. And, it's hard.
Exactly. That's what I say.
Yeah. A lot of people want to keep it a secret, and I understand why. But the secret and the shame that they're trying to put on you is what's holding you back. Listen, I didn't do anything wrong, Senka. My family didn't do anything wrong. I don't have shame. And I'm quite aggravated that someone would say that I did. I want my day in court. I want a fair hearing. I want a judge to be able to hear the case. If I'm wrong, then they can put a judgment against me and do whatever they're going to do. But I know I'm not wrong. And, you have to get – who is it? Is it Pam Ragland? I think it's been on a few times. Pam is a perfect example of how you do it. She really is. I think she's single mom, I believe, with 2 kids. But you just keep putting it away. It's not easy, but you will get there. Just keep putting it away and fight for the next day. Listen, I have my job.
You're talking. Let me just make sure that our audience knows that you're talking about. You're talking about Pam Ragland versus U.S. Bank.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. She's from California. She's been on our program a couple of times. It will be good. I will post again her page on my Facebook to follow her case, because Danielle told me the other day that many lawyers are using her case now in their pleadings, in their foreclosure fights. So Pam is around. She's really accessible. She would like to talk about her case because she wants to help all of you. We will have her back again in the summer, probably next month. Thank you for also bringing up her name.
Listen, Senka, it's important, and we've had this in our discussions before. Again, I'm lucky to have people like you. I have a professor at Yale University, the law school. So, I'm lucky to have this, but you told me this before, and it's really key. It's because of you, because of people like John Wright, that we all get together. We search through blogs, and we just look, but you got to understand, we're all a part of this family, and we could use each other. And some of us I want people to lean on me. Go ahead, lean on me a little. I'll help you. I don't want you to have to try to reinvent the wheel. But, it's without you putting this on there and people like John Wright and Neil Garfield, without you out there, we would be lost. We wouldn't be as far as we are. And, you probably hear it a lot. I know you hear it a lot. I just heard it from Danielle. But what you're doing is changing people's lives, Senka. You're actually changing people's lives. You're giving them hope. It's not a false hope. You're actually bringing people on your calls that make a difference. So all I'm trying to do is pass it on. You gave me some help, asked me to come on and tell the story, and I hope I can give someone else to help. If I can give someone an arrow to be able to fight them, then so be it. But that's because of you, Senka, and again, John Wright. People like you are continuing this battle, and we really appreciate it. And you really do mean a lot to us.
I'm speechless. Thank you so much. But I really don't see any big role of mine in all of this. As I see, without all of you, we wouldn't have this program. I was brave enough, and maybe I never said this on the air. I just want all of you to know that I used to stutter a lot when I was a kid for some family situations and that I was facing when I was 4 years old. I started to stutter, and I had to go to the therapy. So for me, being able to come, English is my second language, and to be able to do this public speaking, it's amazing achievement because, as I said, I was always afraid, even when I cured my stuttering, I was always afraid to speak, and especially in front of people that I don't know. And doing this, I just see this as my calling for this moment. At the moment, I don't know how long it will be. I will be here. But again, without all of you, I wouldn't have this program. So I thank all of you in the chat room and on the phone, all of you who are sending emails. But believe, Senka Live is here just for you and because of you. Without my guests, without your support, we wouldn't have this program. So I'm so grateful for all of you.
Well, Senka, in battle in World War II, and a lot of us hear the stories. And listen, obviously war is a whole new level. We're at a lower level of war. But what happens in all of these stories, when we listen to World War II stories or stories of battle, and people say, hey, that guy's a hero. And the first one that the guy or the guy or girl who's saying he's a hero says, I'm not a hero. And that's what you're saying. You're saying, I'm not a hero. But in the end, you are. You are. And, I just can't say enough. Just keep it up. We just need you to be there for us, and we really appreciate anything we can do. But you got to get up and fight people. People, you got to get up and fight. You just can't expect it to happen.
Exactly, and I love what you just said a few moments ago. We are giving people hope, and this is not false hope. Like, we are not telling people, okay, if you do this, tomorrow you will win a $1 million judgment. No way, we are not saying that. We are just telling you don't have to go crazy thinking that you are a crazy person, that you did something wrong, that you are alone. That's why we are giving you hope that we are all wronged in the same way and that we believe in justice, judicial system, and in justice, and together we can prove them wrong. Everybody who did us wrong and who put so many families and kids in the streets already, and so many will go to bed tonight all over the country facing and fearing their eviction tomorrow. Millions of people are probably facing eviction notice or actual eviction tomorrow. So we are here for you to come and either share your story or to just listen and to make your life easier, to know that you are not really alone. There are so many of us going through the same thing.
Well, you know what's one thing is interesting, and everybody should know this, regardless of how you feel. Americans are unique. We don't lay down. We don't like when they pick on the underdog. Well, if us homeowners aren't the underdog, I don't know who it is. So Americans are unique in the ways they fight back. They don't like seeing injustice. We fight it here, and we fight it all over the world when we can, and we make a difference. Regardless of how you feel about politics, when we try to help, we really do. We put our all into it. So people can't fight that.
Exactly, and that's why I say to people, like, before people will come and complain about government and everything, and I do complain about how they are not effective in this. But we have to know our country is not the government. Government goes and like we change people in the government. Our country is us. We love our country. We want to restore real justice to our country. That's why we're fighting for justice. And we are doing it peacefully. We are trying to do it in a legal way. And even if so many of us are losing houses, we still believe that justice will be served, and that's the whole purpose or networking and being together. And we are also, I can tell you, Darrell, my kids are older. My daughter is going to be 20 next month, and my son is 15. So they keep telling me, because I feel guilty for not spending too much time with them anymore, but they feel that I'm a role model for them, and in the future they will have an example of what to do when somebody is do you wrong. So the same thing goes for you kids and for everybody else's kids in this fight.
I happen to agree with that. A lot of us, we want to protect our children, and we want to keep them from harm. Obviously, that's our job as a parent. And a lot of people who are going through this have kids. That's what the bank is hoping on, that you'll pack up and go away. What I think that my 15-year-old is learning, and he's told me before, is that when something, when you feel you're being wronged, you can't just fight half the way. You have to fight all the way. And I think for a 15-year-old, he's pretty good on these issues. When you hear him come home from school and he's talking about securitization issues with the teachers, well, I think we're in a different realm nowadays. You know what I mean? And it's great that he has to stand up for him. And he has to fight for what's right and for his family. You have to do that.
Exactly.
And just so I can remind everybody who's listening,
thank you so much.
Everybody's case is a little bit different. But the Achilles heel in the servicers and these creditors is the trustees and these trusts. Your loan didn't make it to the trust people. And Neil Garfield's reported, too, that there's not even bank accounts in these trusts. So my advice, and what I'm doing, is go after the trustees. Go after the trustees. Fight them as much as you can. Go after them. Make them prove their case.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. I already have a couple of people who are asking me for your contact information. I will talk to you after.
I'll spell it out for you if you want. It's the letter D, N, E, I, L, A, N, D, E, R at sbcglobal.net. That's sbcglobal.net. And like I said, at Piggy Bank Blog, if you just punch in Neilander, I think it has all of our information in there too. John Wright's working on the second story now to what's going on, so that's going to be great. But again, I thank you for letting me tell my story, and if I could be a help in any way, Senka, for you or for any of your listeners.
Thank you so much.
You give them my contact.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you so much. I have a couple seconds left. Thank you. Enjoy your Sunday. You're welcome back anytime to the program. I just want to let you know again, I won't have any programs next Saturday or Sunday But I will be back on July 13 with attorney Danielle Joyner Kelley, who was just our guest today, and then on July 14 on Sunday, attorney Robert James, who wrote Fighting Foreclosure Fraud Machine and white paper on MERS. He was with us earlier. He's coming for his second interview on July 14. So enjoy your 4th of July holiday and taking a couple of days off. Thank you for being with me yesterday and today, and God bless you all. Bye-bye.